There are still some seats over on the left side, on my left side, I do the left side. There's more seats. All right, we have packed houses, and it's fantastic. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this morning's Key Decision Makers. I'm Michelle Stickerker, President and CEO of the New Jersey Business Industry Association. It is really great to see everyone this morning. I think we all have a little bounce in our step this week after we got announced yesterday that we're lifting masks in school come March. Folks are getting back out. It's so great to look around the room and see everybody who's here with us this morning. And thank you for taking time to be here. We're really excited about this morning's event because this morning we have the special privilege and opportunity to present the new Senate President. And in a few moments, I will introduce him more officially. First, I want to thank and recognize our partners. And Senate President, this is a long list. So these are a lot of people who support BIA and support me being here today. So everyone bear with me as I lead through, and at the end, let's give our partners a big round of applause. ACI Medical and Dental School, Amazon, AmeriHealth, AMT, CGI, DoorDash, Fidelity, Georgian Court University, Geneva Burns, Horizon Blue Cross Blue Shield, IBEW Local 102, Investors Bank, the New Jersey CPA Society, New Jersey Manufacturers Insurance Group, New Jersey Resources, New Jersey Business Magazine, our award-winning New Jersey Business Magazine, Prager Metis, Sobel Co., South Jersey Industries, and Spanho Holdings. Let's have a round of applause. So I had an opportunity to spend some time, looking into the background of the Senate President. Realized we have an awful lot in common. We're lawyers. We both served on school boards. But some very unique things is, while I always consider myself be 2 steps ahead and get things done as quick as I can, you decided you wanted to graduate early from just about everything you did and be about the youngest in everything you did. And so, it's really interesting to learn that, you graduated high school early because you wanted to get right on to the next. And then you graduated law school and you were recognized, from your great awards in law school, and everything you did, you just always been a step ahead. In fact, you were also the youngest ever elected freeholder in your county, which is fantastic. So let us welcome Senate President Nicholas Guerrieri, who was elected the 115th President of the New Jersey State Senate, and who will lead the chamber for the 220th legislative session. A little bit about his background. He was first elected in 2003 to represent the 22nd District, a lifelong Linden resident, began his career in public service in 1994, as I mentioned, on the Linden Board of Education, and from there served many years on county freeholders, ultimately to be the chairman in Union County. And then he also spearheaded several initiatives now coming into the new legislative session. We know insurance reform is an issue for you. We look forward to talking about that and what that means to you, and where you think that there are opportunities that we can work together on insurance reform. But you also, large priority for you, and much of your service thus far has been on the Judiciary Committee. And you've been the longest-standing chair of the Judiciary Committee, and take great time in order to ensure that we vet judges and anyone who is appointed to office, and we thank you for that service. And then something you were very well known for in the state was compassionate care. And your concern for those ill and infirmed, and you were the leading sponsor on the New Jersey Compassionate Use Medical Marijuana Act, ensuring that there was access for folks who are gravely ill and debilitated to have access to resources that they need. And then you took that one step further to lead the charge on legalizing marijuana in the state of New Jersey, which we know is an industry that is getting ready to grow. We have so many folks sitting right now on the sidelines just ready to jump in, waiting for the regulations to come out. And we look forward to continuing to work with you, with the regulators on this as well, on how we're going to carry this out in a safe and responsible manner to lift this industry up, because we know that there's tens of thousands of jobs waiting to be had in that industry. Again, I noted that you were also very interested in education from the time you served as a school board to the time that now you've passed many bills that help to expand and deepen what we do in education. And, for BIA, workforce development and educational opportunity is very important. We talk about how do we prepare today's students to meet the needs for tomorrow's jobs for our employers. So we thank you for your work in that area. Practicing attorney located in Linden, and you're a certified attorney by the Supreme Court, a civil trial attorney, and we thank you for being here. Most important, John Kennedy, he's also an Eagle Scout, just like you. So let us welcome Senate President Guerrieri.
Thank you so much, Michelle. And I know that people think I was always in a hurry to do some things, but this is my 19th year in the Senate, believe it or not. So I've been around for a while and a lot of familiar faces today. So thank you for being here, and very happy to be here. Even I'm not a morning person, as probably some people are aware, but I'm happy to be here this morning. And I hope that despite what I've done over these almost 2 decades in the legislature, in this new role, that we're looking to take a balanced approach to many different issues as it relates to business and industry and even insurance reforms. Things that I think that we can work together on for the benefit of our consumers, but also making sure that business and industry still survives and thrives in New Jersey. I think it's important to have jobs, because I think one thing we've learned is that having a job is pretty much the most important thing to our electorate. Because no matter what we do on the other ends of the spectrum, if people aren't gainfully employed, can't pay their taxes, can't pay their bills, there's nothing else that's more important. So I was proud and happy that the speaker and I were able to speak with the governor last week about rolling back the mandates. I think it's time for us to move in that direction. I thought that the governor's office did an excellent job in response to an unprecedented pandemic, but I believe, and I think the science is showing, that we're moving in the direction where we're almost at an endemic stage, where we're going to be able to move in a direction where we're back to full employment without restrictions. Hopefully that'll be very soon. I know the governor is looking to finish this up this year, hopefully sooner rather than later. And there's always going to be trepidation coming out of something as serious as we did, but I think if we do it responsibly and carefully, we're going to be able to get back in the right direction. That's going to help all of us. It's going to help our economy. It's going to help our jobs come back. Hopefully it'll help get people to want to come back to work, because that's one of the complaints I've heard. And when you sit home for 2 years, I think it might be difficult for people to get back to the regular swing of things, but we're hopeful to make sure that that happens. So one of the things, the only thing so far that we rolled out in the first few weeks of the Sen presidency under my leadership was an affordability agenda. I think one of the things that my caucus has realized, and we've realized for years, but we want to get back to basics. We want to make sure that affordability is front and center in all the things that we do in New Jersey. Because, as I said earlier, people can't afford to live here, work here, raise a family here. And I always say, even to maybe retire here, although we see a lot of retirements leaving out of the state, we love to be able to keep people here, especially when they have decent pensions, to be able to spend in our own communities. Love to be able to continue to work on that. So emphasizing our priority of affordability in New Jersey is front and foremost in my agenda for this year, as well as I believe the Democratic caucus and the Democratic leadership that I've been already met with to discuss these bills. You may have looked at the first bill that we passed was S330, which was distributing the energy tax receipts to municipalities, but making and requiring that those funds be used to reduce their property tax levy. A lot of times we give money to municipalities and it doesn't necessarily translate into stabilization of property taxes. And I think one of the amendments that we did to that bill is going to reflect that, in that it makes them have to deal with their property tax levy. So that's one of the things. And I think one of the things that we can do better in the future is doing less. Doing less sometimes is more. Working on the bills that are important to New Jerseyans more intently, making sure that there's a full vetting process for the things. No matter what we do, we know government moves quickly at the end of sessions. I'm not pretending that that's going to stop, but we've already slowed things down a little bit. When I mean slow them down, I mean we've made them more intensely reviewed. Legislators having more of an opportunity, the public having more of an opportunity to understand what it is that we're doing, and make sure that what we're doing is a more holistic approach and not just something that we're going to hurry up and get finished. Because so many things wait, and then at the end, they're done. I know that there's some questions about some bills that are pending before the legislature. I know one of them has to do with the unemployment insurance fund. I can tell you that I don't have an answer for you on that yet, but I certainly have started to look at that, and I'll be meeting with the speaker to discuss that in the near future. I think that we're going to try to work together in this next year. I think myself, the speaker, and the governor are looking forward to a good year with working on affordability, taxation issues for the state, and concentrating on things of that nature. And I think that's going to benefit all New Jerseyans and New Jerseyans. And if we can make New Jersey a better place to do business, it's going to be a better place for people to work and to live and raise their families. So with that, I want to say thank you. Good morning to everyone. Thank you for being here. And obviously I'm not running out, so I'll make the questions. So I'll sit down and take one. Sure. Sure.
Okay.
Actually, I'd like to kick it off, and we'll open it to the audience. And then Chrissy is going to moderate some Q&A as well. But you did mention the UI tax, and thank you for recognizing and acknowledging that. We do want to thank you for working along with BIA and the business community on spreading out the cost over the 3 years, and that was got us started in the right direction over a year ago. Unfortunately now, business community is starting about $1 billion increase in the UI cost. And we know that not all of that can be covered by the federal relief money. We understand that there's a lot of demands. However, we do think that there is some good compromise in there. And in particular, we do have some solutions looking at the third year and using some money in order to pay off those federal loans that we have to take interest off. And so we would hope that, and that's the bill that's out there right now, which is S733, Senate Labor Chairman Madden and Majority Leader Greenwald. So we would like to work with you on that bill, and thank you for acknowledging that, and we look forward to having that conversation. I don't know if you want to say anything else on that, but I just wanted to acknowledge that we are looking forward to working with you on that.
Well, I'll say one thing. The state just did that yesterday, which was paying down some debt. And I think that's one of the most simplistic things that you could do to right any economic ship when it comes to, I said this in my quote, whether it's your house, whether it's your home, your businesses, if you can pay down your debt, you can stabilize your financial ship. And most times, if you cut down those payments over time, that's going to cost you less in the long run. So anything that we can do to stabilize our economic ship, which may be in third year, I'll certainly be open to it.
Fantastic. And I have one more, and then we'll come to the audience. When we talk about affordability, sometimes that means different things to different people, for sure. And for us, when we talk about business affordability, in particular, New Jersey small business, there have been some relief bills out there in lame duck that got through legislature, but got held up at the governor's desk. And we're wondering where your thoughts and priorities may be on business relief as we go forward.
Well, I guess that depends on what bills. So, I mean, there were so many bills that were passed right at the end of Blaine Duck, and they weren't even some of those. So, obviously, we'll take a fresh look at those. And I think what we're going to try to do in this next 2 years is create a theme for the month, for the area, the term, so that we're not so scattered in terms of the things that we're concentrating on. So right now is the best time. We're talking about affordability for New Jerseyans. We've been talking about that since day one of the new administration, and we're going to continue to do that. So we're happy to talk to you and look at those bills.
Very good. Chris, do you want to?
Sure. Thank you, Senate President. I, on behalf of the entire government affairs team who is here today, I look forward to working with you, and also want to acknowledge your team, who I've had the pleasure of working with over the years, from Ed, Nick, Jess, Tony, and Harris. Thank you. I look forward to the opportunity to continue that relationship as well.
Harris, you got a shot.
I do appreciate what you mentioned about your first committee session focusing on affordability, and we were definitely happy to support those pieces of legislation, as well as your mention of striking balance. And that is something that the business community has said over these last few years, is just really trying to achieve that balance so that we're able to take care of our workers, but obviously also make sure that the economy moves forward and getting folks back to work. And certainly, I think a lot of folks in this room would appreciate that deliberative process that you mentioned as well, right? Policy is complicated, and giving folks the opportunity to weigh in, I think, is important as well. So thank you for that as well.
My members are appreciative of this.
Yeah, I'm sure. I know it's been a busy few years, so I think we can all attest to that. Public health emergency. So yes, happy to see that there has been conversation on that. I know the governor extended it another 30 days. There's certainly a lot of implications with ending the public health emergency. One is, as you know, when the governor reenacted the public health emergency, it triggered the workers' compensation presumption legislation, something that I think at this point in time we've heard has been an inadvertent, and something that, being 2 years into the pandemic doesn't seem quite right now. So we're wondering your thoughts on that, but also to make sure that what's really critically important too is all of the administrative orders and waivers that were done specifically for a lot of our healthcare facilities and those who have to get licenses from various departments, and they don't just go away overnight. It's really important that they stay in effect, because we have learned that we need to be able to treat people quicker, faster, more convenient to them. So love to hear your thoughts on where do you see the public health emergency going?
Well, I think you made a couple of good points that we've already recognized. I'm certain, I spoke to the administration about this thing just not going away, because there's a lot of aspects of it with the directives that you've spoken about, which will be beneficial moving forward when it comes to emergency licensure and keeping an effective workforce, and hoping to build on that, because we have some shortcomings already. So I don't think you're going to see that part of it go away. I don't know if I would call it inadvertent with respect to the presumption of the workers' compensation benefits, but clearly the reading and the reasoning behind the presumption of workers' compensation benefits for those affected by COVID-19 during the initial stages of the pandemic were because almost no one was going to work for a period of time. And so it was fairly clear that if a policeman or a fireman or someone else, perhaps a grocery store worker, was exposed to COVID-19, that the presumption was they got it at work, because really no one was going anywhere else. There was nowhere else to go. But that obviously has changed. I can see you all here now. And so it's a little bit different. So I think that's absolutely something that we've got to resolve. Hopefully, those types of issues are not as significant as they were 2 years ago, because obviously throughout this last 2 years, we have some treatments, which we started with none. We have vaccinations, which we had none. So the science has really done an amazing job for us in these last 2 years. And the governor's office was faced with something unparalleled and made a lot of decisions, and to sit here on Monday morning and quarterback a lot of those is not something I'm going to do. But I did suggest, and I think we will do, an entire review of the process of these last 2 years, because it's worthwhile. And perhaps some legislative changes to the Emergency Powers Act. We're not going to be reactionary to that. We're going to take a deep dive and look at all the aspects of it. But the legislature has made their point clearly. They want to be at the table for anything that goes on longer and longer. Emergency powers declaration is meant to be during an emergency. And by virtue of the fact that it's gone on for 2 years, it seems like it's not necessarily as emergent as it was in the first 2 months. The emergency kind of wanes over time. So perhaps some changes to that, and the governor's office is open-minded to that. It's not going to be reactionary, punitive, or to blame anyone. It's to just improve things. God forbid this happens again. Something like this does. And if it happened once, it could happen again. So there are some legislative changes that may occur. It's not going to be tomorrow or next month, but after in a period of time where we can make an analysis of all the things that we did right and perhaps didn't do as well as they could have.
Thank you. We look forward to working with you. Absolutely. Do folks from our audience have any questions they want to raise?
None, perfect.
Yeah.
Good morning, Walter Calman, Community Access Unlimited, in our agency. Well, okay.
Good morning, Walter.
Your predecessor, obviously, Senator Sweeney, was a big advocate for our population, which is the largest of minorities, people with disabilities, and yet the most underserved, the most impoverished, the lowest rates of homeownership and employment. So we're certainly hoping that this is going to be a term. We've been working with the association here to try to create new opportunities for people with disabilities. But that's clearly an area that needs a lot of work. The falling off the cliff effect, going from school to adult services, is tragic. I work with families every day trying to struggle through that. So I guess more a comment than a question is our hope that we're going to continue, as you've been a great supporter of our organization, but for a field in general, to try to continue those efforts in the term.
Well, one of the few things that the Sen President outgoing and I talked about that he asked me to consider to keep in my forefront of my mind is that topic and those individuals. So I didn't have to make too many promises to him, but that's one of the ones I told him that I would certainly continue to try to service that community as well as he did, if possible.
Sen Prez.
Congratulations. Thank you.
The budget was scheduled for February 22 to be addressed by the governor every year. We pushed back. It's question number one, if the Senate is going to agree to the pushback date. And I don't know if you talked to Chairman Sarlo, but before the pandemic, I used to call them road shows. There would be a budget here in North Central and South Jersey members, just wanted to know if you're going to go back to that tradition.
So the first question is yes. I can actually answer that correctly. The budget address will be pushed off. More than likely, it's going to be. We have formalized that for a vote, but I anticipate pushed off for exactly 2 weeks. In accordance with a request by the governor's office, the speaker and I think our respective leaderships have discussed that. We're going to give them that opportunity to delay by about 2 weeks. And in terms of the roadshows, one of the things I'm trying to do as the new Senate President, do no harm. Senate President Sweeney was there for 12 years, so I've been there a little bit less than that right now. So a lot of the things that he did work effectively. He must have been doing something right because he was there for 12 years, the longest in history in New Jersey. So if Chairman Sarlo wants to continue that process with consultation from the Assembly, I wouldn't be objecting to that. That's something I think might continue to do. I'm not certain he does, but it's certainly possible.
Thank you.
I would just like to, take up something on budget, and you talked about the former Senate President, the path to progress.
Yes.
We talk about things that have come along and things that have a lot of, need and opportunity for us and priority. Can you comment about some of the types of reform we see in the path to progress, and can we look to see some action on perhaps some of those reforms and how we can work with you on this?
Well, interestingly, before Sweeney had the path to progress, myself and Senator Nellie Poe, who was an assemblywoman, spent an entire summer in the legislature talking about affordability issues. And I'm under the direction of Governor Corzine, and I still remember like yesterday, he said, Senator, do bold things with pension reform. I want you to do bold things. And when we gave him 67 bold things to do, he's like, we can't do that. So, we ended up doing about 6, and it was so insulting that I actually took my name off. So those are never easy accomplishments. Senator Sweeney marched up and down the state with attempting to garner progress on those issues. And a lot of it, and I think, and I don't know this, but the governor's office may or may not be willing to talk about some of those issues moving forward. He has a new 4-year term. He will not seek re-election. That much I know. So it's still debatable as to the types of issues we're going to holistically choose to deal with together. But I can tell you that one of the things I think we all enjoy at this point, everything will deteriorate, but is a good working relationship between the Assembly, the Senate, and the executive branch. So we're going to try to work on things that are good for all New Jerseyans. They may have to call it something else in order to do that. But I think certainly some of the topics that Senator Sweeney had in his many travels, lecturing on the path of progress, are worthy of continued discussion.
Thank you. I know there's questions out there. We have Rick. And I just want to acknowledge Rick Thigpen is on our board of trustees. Thanks for being here this morning, Rick.
Good morning, Senator.
Hey, Rick.
Balance and affordability. I was listening very carefully. So we work in a world with a clean energy agenda. That is a big one. Arguably, the least expensive fuel is the dirtiest fuel. How are you guys thinking about balancing those needs for clean energy and affordability going forward?
Exactly what you said, balancing. But I think you may already know that Senator Smith's going to be convening a hearing on some sustainable energy initiatives, and it's just a listening situation where we're going to talk about the energy master plan and moving forward. But there's, just in the initial meetings that I've had, there's lots of options out there that may be beneficial, utilizing our current infrastructure in a more clean fashion. I know that most of what the energy master plan had dealt with was electrification, and almost solely electrification. And I'm not certain, but that can be the only way to clean energy in the future. I am a firm believer that we need to move in that direction, but that doesn't mean that there aren't other opportunities to utilize our infrastructure. Interestingly, concepts with the changeover from natural gas to other types of renewable energies that may actually be much cleaner than, I remember when natural gas was going to solve all our problems, and now that's not necessarily as important. But there's a lot of naturally occurring natural gas that's going to be there anyway. So perhaps that can play a role in our moving forward with our energy needs. But we're going to need a lot of energy. And we're going to want to use a lot of energy, because the more people we have that are using energy, it's better for our economy. So in utilizing the energy that we have and moving towards a clean energy future, but recognizing that it's not going to all be done at one time, and that there are other steps that we can utilize, and utilizing some of our currently available infrastructure for other types of clean energy forms, I think is important to keep that balanced approach, that we just don't do one thing, because I don't think our grid can handle just electrification. I'm not the expert, but these are the things that I've said and heard from experts. So I think just as that, there's lots of other opportunities. I think perhaps even nuclear energy is going to play a role. That may be something that's utilized in trying to make New Jersey a cleaner place to do business and have the sufficient energy to utilize all the things that you need to keep businesses running.
And doing that in a slow and steady path is really important. Business needs predictability, certainty, and they need a glide path. And, being able to look down the line, no shocks to the system are significantly important. So we appreciate taking that type of approach.
No, that's one of the things I've learned in a lot of things that we do. Predictability is something that people want to know. Like, we can deal with certain things, but let us know what's coming and let us roll it out and catch up to it over time so we can make the necessary adjustments and not just doing it all at once. So, I think we do have to get moving, but that doesn't mean we have to do it all at once.
Good morning. My name is Fernanda Nixon, and I'm with the African American Chamber of Commerce of New Jersey. I'm the Chief of Policy and Government Affairs there. So we kind of live in the world of equity and access for Black-owned businesses. So just wanted to know, in your affordability agenda, is there room in that agenda for that? And in particular, we're finding in the cannabis industry that we're having some difficulty with getting our members and our Black-owned businesses licenses in that area.
Well, the first answer is we better be. Secondly, your members are not the only ones having difficulties in getting into that space, because no one's in the space yet. And we're a couple of weeks away from a deadline that's already going to be missed. But one of the things that we built into the medical, the legalized medical market was real goals of enabling legislation that would be equitable to all New Jerseyans, including members of your chamber. And hopefully the administration can utilize the enabling legislation that we put in there to achieve those goals, because that was one of the goals that we had in the final piece of legislation, was to ensure that there were individuals of areas in need based upon the failed drug war that would have an opportunity to participate in the market. But right now, nobody's participating in the market other than the illegal drug dealers. But they're really having a good time now. But that's going to come to an end. It's been a lot of complications to the legalized market coming to bear. The only lessons that we could learn from it is when alcohol came out of prohibition. It was a simpler time back then. And essentially what government said at that time was all the illegal bootleggers, they get licenses. He said, here, you're now legal. We're doing something way more complicated, way more complex, and trying to compete with a black market or an illicit market that's already well established and great in our society, and trying to compete with them. And then also trying to meet equity interests. And just getting the doors open has proven very, very challenging. New Jerseyans voted by a 2-to-1 margin to legalize marijuana like 15 months ago. We don't have one store selling legal marijuana. So the complications are not unique to your members. They're widespread, but I'm certainly hopeful that we'll be able to work with members of your industry, your chamber, to make sure that they can participate in the legalized marijuana market. And that's something that this legislature and the bill that I passed certainly has goals of.
Thank you. Sen Prez, I think that Chris is going to ask a question along those lines from the chat.
Good morning, Sen Prez and Scutari. We have about 50 people watching online in the chat, and we've had a couple cannabis-related questions that I want to kind of combine for you. Is number one, somebody asked about your thoughts on home grow policy. Number two, somebody asked about what can we do to support, stimulate cannabis research. That we used to be the medicine chest of the world. We still are in many ways, but can we do so on the cannabis basis? And number three, question from the CPA Society was that, is there anything we can do on the federal decoupling where we don't allow cannabis businesses to make business expense deductions the way that other businesses can because of tie-in with the federal government?
Well, I'll take them in reverse order. That is a very complicated and unfortunate problem that marijuana businesses have. They can't write off business expenses on their federal taxes, and that's something that I've spoken to Cory Booker about. He has great interest in marijuana legalization. When he introduced his bill for the federal level, he did it on the city of Linden City Hall steps where I live. And that was nice of him to do that because we worked together, giving him some of the pieces of our legislation to do that. But that's going to probably, for the most part, require federal intervention to do that. Second question.
Research.
So that's something that we've heard of when we started that part of the legislation is to ensure that dollars go into research because it's important. One of the things that we're probably going to need to revisit as we open up a legalized market is maybe some rollbacks on our medical marijuana plan because in the goals were a lot of one, the Murphy administration and myself and Senator Taylor worked on an expansion of the medical marijuana program that I passed under General Cortison, which was woefully run by the Christie administration, partially because they just didn't want to do it. And then when the Murphy administration came in, they were much more open-minded to opening up the medical marijuana program to many, many other individuals. However, given the fact that taxes on the marijuana product for medical purposes are going to be gone, and that the taxes on a legalized product are going to be much higher, there's probably, I'm just guessing here, people that are going to want to get medical marijuana, even though they should probably be utilizing it for adult use only. And so we're probably going to have to take a look at that based upon the business needs and making sure that the businesses are not being people aren't moving around the laws in order to self-medicate because we've utilized and people have indicated that marijuana can be used for medical purposes for a variety of different things, but it's also used for a lot of things that not necessarily are just medical based. So that's something we're going to have to look at. And in terms of the homegrown question, that's a question that we get a lot. Our industry is not ready for it yet. I'm not against it. I understand why people want it. But not one marijuana plant has been sold legally in New Jersey outside of for medical purposes. And the last thing I think we want to do, based upon my research and my trips throughout this country and this world about legalizing marijuana, is introducing a bunch more products that's unregulated, and that's what ends up legitimately happening. I think my prediction will be at some point in time, New Jersey will go to a homegrown allowance, but it's going to be stricter than what's been allowed in other states. People are going to have to register in order to grow their own. They're going to have to participate in the program as if it was a legal market. Because undoubtedly what happens is that product leaks out into other spaces. It either gets into the illicit market right here in New Jersey, competing with a legalized market without the strict testing regulations or the taxation, and also just goes into other markets where it's not legal. We've seen that in Colorado with bales of marijuana moving out of Colorado into Nebraska and other places. So ultimately, I think we'll get there. That day is not right now.
Thank you.
Actually, Sen Prez, I have a question for you. Federal funds, ARPA funds. I know that we still have billions of dollars that are coming from the federal government and a lot of potential uses for that. BIA.
We'll figure it out.
I'm sure. So we actually put some thoughts together on that.
You're not unique.
Yes. Really focused along the lines of workforce development, and we are in a collaboration, a formal partnership with New Jersey's community colleges on workforce initiatives, focusing on areas such as manufacturing with our partner here, John Kennedy from the Manufacturing Extension Program, to health services, information technology, and energy. But we have asked for a lot of real plans for long-term infrastructure projects to be done in addition to the workforce development piece as well. Can you shed some light on, what you're thinking, where the caucus might be heading moving forward?
Well, I think it's probably twofold. One of the most important things that we can do as legislators to ensure that our workforce is ready for the jobs that are available to them. And if they're not, they're going to lead their people. Industry is going to seek elsewhere, or they're going to suffer as a result of that. So investment in that, and we've been thinking about that, particularly with the program at Cambridge University, matching jobs with individuals and ensuring that those individuals can be trained up for the jobs that are already available. But there's also been other thoughts to utilize that money for certain transformational types of things. I'm not certain. I hope that's something we'll be able to do, but the needs are so many different places that there's going to be competing interest to spend that money in a lot of different ways. And I think you're going to see it hopefully done in a fashion that everybody gets an opportunity to weigh in on what's best for New Jersey. But there's a lot of ideas. Obviously, one of the ones that you mentioned was having an educated workforce, educated for the jobs that exist now and for tomorrow, and keeping the very skilled and smart and intellectually gifted individual that grow up in New Jersey here in New Jersey and doing some important jobs, not having to look elsewhere. But also, obviously, there's infrastructure needs all over. I mean, we had a pretty big pothole on the way here. So, I certainly understand that infrastructure needs are abound. Just being able to access Manhattan is something that we still haven't been able to do efficiently. And if it had to be built, that tunnel back when I first got in the legislature, it already be built. It hadn't been canceled out. So we're still even working on those things. So the needs are from all different directions.
You do have a question, right?
Morning, Senator. Mike Regan, CGI, fellow Eagle Scout. With the passage of the infrastructure bill in November, what's the Senate's priorities on IT infrastructure as the money starts?
As I said before, probably the priorities are, you come up with an idea and there's areas where we can spend money. And my position on it is to whatever it is that we decide, where it goes, just to be spent efficiently, not wastefully, not lost, where we look back in 2 years and go, what did we do with all this money and what did we get for it? We want to be able to look back and have some accomplishments as a result of it, whether it be in the field of IT infrastructure, actually shovels in the ground projects, creating a workforce that matches. All of these things are important. And obviously the federal administration talked about IT as something that's important because those are mostly 21st century type jobs, maybe even 22nd century jobs that we have to continue to be prepared for.
Question over here and one over here. You want to step it up?
I'm across the aisle, Girl Scout.
I was concerned when you were talking about affordability, about families where both parents are working in the household, and I wanted to know where the Democratic caucus stands on affordable childcare.
Well, it depends on who you ask. I know that Senator Ruiz has talked about that issue for many, many years. And I was the co-sponsor of the bill that allowed for people that were running for office to utilize campaign funds to spend money on child care as they ran for office. So we know that child care affordability is an important aspect of raising a family in New Jersey, especially when you have parents working and kids. I know that when my parents sent me to the park, there was no child care back then. But that's just something that obviously is something that needs to be addressed. But it depends on what you're talking about specifically. Kids that are under school age or different needs than kids that are school age and summer needs. But that's certainly forefront of some members of my caucus, for sure.
Just before we go to that next question, just staying on this for one moment, concern that we have is appropriations being made. The governor identifying priorities for spending of the federal money. For example, in this particular area in childcare, very large investment of about $700 million that was announced about 6 months ago, and yet we're still waiting for money to actually get on the street. And so I say that because I know it's out of the legislature's hands, and yet there may be opportunities for the legislature to be helpful in ensuring that we expedite getting that money to the street from the time of appropriations day.
Well, the legislature wants to play a role as much as it can. And, my predecessors actually spent some significant dollars before I got there. And so we've asked the process to slow down a little bit so our new leadership team could play a role in spending those dollars.
Jim?
Good morning, Senator. Congratulations. I'm Jim McCracken. I'm with Leading Age New Jersey and Delaware. We're a trade association. And I just wanted to bring up something that you mentioned in your opening remarks about the way bills are moving through the legislature. One of the things that we found frustrating during the pandemic is often we don't find out a bill that's critical to our industry and something that we need to analyze and be a thought leader and provide constructive feedback on is posted days before a hearing. And then sometimes we don't get the amendment until we're at the hearing, sometimes even minutes before. And it makes it very difficult for us to not only provide constructive feedback, but to engage our members, to get our members involved and organize them to come to the State House or even virtually testify on a bill. So I know you mentioned that on your opening remarks. How do you plan to stir that up and give folks who are interested and want to provide good feedback for a bill, sort of more time to be able to work through that?
Well, probably in the past, they wanted to go fast. They couldn't come. In all honesty, but that's one of the areas that I'm trying to work on and improve. And that's just exactly what you said. It's a slower process down to get greater notification to the public, to the members, because it's not just a complaint amongst people that aren't members, even the members, because there are the committee hearing itself is a constructive process and should be one where it gives an opportunity for members to hear different versions of what is introduced and perhaps enlighten them on areas of a bill that they hadn't thought of. And the amendment process is what it is. We're going to try and improve that to give greater latitude and greater opportunity for the public to see those. And one of the things that working with the speaker we've talked about trying to do is the second referencing other bills to additional committees for supplemental hearings, specifically when it comes to amendments. As you're probably aware, many bills go into the budget committee, and Senator Sarlo has to run a lot of bills there. That there's for good reason for that. Generally, they have to do with spending measures, but some other bills that maybe straddle two different committees may see that as a more regular utilization of the committee process. The second referencing the second committees, so that amendments may be more thoroughly vetted.
Chris, do we have a question from the chat?
Yeah, two more. Going back to your overall on judiciary issues. Number one, ask what your thoughts are on the way we can fill judicial vacancies right now going forward. And number two, family court reform. Any thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, we're going to continue to fill judgeships just the way we did before, which is through the vetting process, working with the governor's office, who has the initial role of making those interviews and those backgrounds and selections. We worked together this past summer, myself and the executive branch, well before I thought I'd be leading that role, in trying to streamline a process, but also make it more thorough and efficient based upon our particular vetting processes. One of the things I've always said is, the governor's office, and we see this a lot of times with picks to the Supreme Court or even recently with the Attorney General, they spend 6 months vetting 12 individuals and then they give me the person's name. In 6 seconds, they ask me to tell me what my feelings are on this individual. And I will do it because I haven't had the opportunity to review what this person is all about. Even individuals that I may be familiar with, they spend 6 months looking at them and they ask us to look at it in 6 seconds and give you a comment. Usually it's by a microphone, somebody going, what do you think? But working together through that process so we can all know more about those individuals in a sooner fashion. We do have some judicial vacancies. We've been working hard to fill those, but as you're probably aware, the courts are still not open, not to the public at least. They're open for lawyers, they're open for the judges, they're going to work, and they've done an amazing job during this period of closure working remotely. But the time is now to start bringing people back into the courtrooms if you want to really see justice met out. There are lots and lots of matters, particularly in family law, that have just been sitting around and waiting. And people have been waiting for their day in court in certain cases that are just unresolvable. Our judges have done an amazing job of trying to resolve cases on their own. Some cases are in the need of a trial or in the need of a jury. If you can't bring a jury into the courtroom, cases lag. And that affects all aspects of life, criminal prosecutions, civil cases, and even the matter of family law matters where judges are making the decisions, they've been bogged down as well. So filling vacancies is a role that we all take very seriously. I have done, and we want to continue to do that, but we're not going to rush to judgment because most of the folks that we put on the bench, they are vested with enormous powers and they last generally for a lifetime. Very rarely does a judge get knocked off during the period of the time that they're serving. So it's an important, although it's a slow process, it's a very important process. And I would say this, New Jersey, we do it right. In most states in this country, believe it or not, judges run for office. The judges campaign. I'm the most there. I can do the best job as a judge. It seems ludicrous to us that live in New Jersey, but it is what it is in most other states in this union. So New Jersey has an advice and consent process through the nomination process that was met out by our constitutional amendments. And I think it's an excellent way of selecting judges, but sometimes it does get slow. And we've got to do a better job in moving them quicker, because the more judges we have, the faster cases can be resolved.
Last question from the audience, please. Thanks. John?
1970 Eagle Scout, and to answer the question at our table, 112 years, over 2 million Eagles. Yes, we all know each other.
Good to see you again.
I'll give you the secret then. Just a quick one, because we've got a lot of things coming up. Manufacturing obviously is my passion in the state, and luckily I've got partners like BIA and Chemistry Council and so on and so forth. And a few years ago, 5.5 actually, Senator Sweeney had helped us create the caucus, the manufacturing caucus, which is bipartisan, bicameral. We're hoping that you will support it and help it grow. 11,000 plus companies, almost 400,000 workers when you tie in everybody, and 45,000 open jobs. So, I don't want to put you on the spot, but that's my hope. And we'll see you at the next Eagle meeting.
Okay, well, thank you so much. Sen President, thanks for joining us this morning. Thank you for the candid discussion. Truly appreciate the discussion around process, because, oftentimes we're jumping right to the substance, and we forget process is a really important part of how we make policy in the state of New Jersey, something we have advocated for a long time, saying, let's get the process right. Truly believe every time you have a fair process, you yield a fair result.
Well, I didn't say it was good. I'm gonna try.
And that's what we can do. So we look forward to working along with you. We have a lot of work to do. We have a lot of great opportunity. We have a lot of money in the state right now that we need to leverage in a responsible way. And we know we can do it together. So thank you. Let's have a round of applause.